Hey everyone, it's Ravi, aka the Junior Explorer. Figured I would do a little bit of a follow-up from my Metals Investors Forum and PDAC visit this past weekend. Had a lot of responses on Twitter and co.ca to get the scoops and share all the great information I was able to gather. And I've been actually wanting to do a company profile on Brunswick for quite a long while. I actually only came in to the Metals Investors Forum for Brunswick. Despite the big snowstorm, everything was good. And getting into the MIF there on the Saturday and leaving the MIF, and had a great day at the Delta and had a lot of good conversations. Obviously, most importantly with Brunswick, and then had a great day at the PDAC on Sunday. And I actually wish I had an extra day at PDAC because there's a lot of additional booths that I wanted to visit and maybe do an extra, interview or two, and had the opportunity to actually visit some of the provincial booths to get some maps and some more information regarding lake bottom sediment data. I thought it would be pretty good information on helping to determine the next company I'd want to take a position in. So, one again, thank all those folks who just followed me this past weekend. I actually was able to get another, 200 new Twitter followers, so an extra 10% over the weekend. So thanks to those new folks, as well as those folks that have been following me for quite a little bit of a while there. So I'm going to be talking through Brunswick. I figured the best way to do that was to just kind of go through their presentation and share some of my notes that I took down while talking to both Bob and Killian, and then kind of sharing that out. And thought that would be a little more efficient and give me an opportunity to talk a little bit more instead of getting those fingers as tired, tweeting and doing all those other things. So, couple things. So I'm going to give you a little bit of a background on my exposure to Brunswick and why I think this is something that is quite unique versus a lot of the other juniors and lithium companies out there. So, little history. You know, Bob Wares came to my attention way back in the Arizona mining days. John Kaiser had made a recommendation. I think it was, I'm not sure if it was 2016 or 2018, but he'd alerted his subscribers to Arizona mining and something potentially special with the zinc project. And at that time, he had recommended at 30 cents. And, you fast forward 2 years later, and that stock ended up going up to $6 during a buyout for $2 billion. So after that happened, I kind of banged my head on the walls like, man, I missed out on that one. But I kind of said to myself, I need to follow Bob Wares into the next thing he does. And unfortunately, he went quite silent. I couldn't figure out, what he was doing. And then he resurfaced, a few years later. So rewind back to December 2021, John had finalized his bottom fishing list for 2022, and he had added Brunswick to that list, and just mentioned that they're in the process of gathering some projects. So didn't really get on my radar until April of 2022, and John alerted his subscribers that they're doing something pretty special. They're getting into lithium. They're assembling what would be the potentially biggest grassroots exploration program in Canada. So I happened to luckily take a little position in there. I should have taken a far bigger position, but really want to see how this thing develops. So fast forward from April 2022, and we get to June 2022. As part of me doing my own due diligence and kind of taking the time to see if an investment is good, I had a couple of questions for Brunswick, and it's particular Bob. And I had heard that Bob was going to be at Metals Investors Forum back in June of 2022. And someone on co.ca happened to say, hey, I got Bob's email address. Why don't you message him and see if you can get some time? So literally Bob messaged me that Saturday. And we happened to be able to link up after lunch and had a sit down. We had a really good one-on-one. We chatted for about 45 minutes. I got an education on lithium. and mining from Bob, kind of the 101. He shared some really good stories. He wasn't afraid to drop the odd F-bomb or two, so he was really very personable, kept it real. I left that one-on-one, with the impression that, man, these guys have a plan. They plan things out. They really got their act together. So fast forward to Saturday at the MIF in Toronto. I'd heard that Bob actually wasn't going to be available at the Metals Investment Forum. He had a whole bunch of things going on those 2 days. And so I pretty much prepared my visit for questions to Killian. And I happened to message John Kaiser that afternoon when I rolled in, asking him if he was around, and he just said that he was finishing up his sessions with Bob and Killian, and Bob actually happened to come in. So that was a nice little bonus. And those geology questions and that theory I had around lake bottom sediment and some other data points was something I want to really put in front of Bob. So I was pretty excited about that. So just one other little comment before I kind of go into my conversation with about Brunswick. John's really the only newsletter writer talking about lithium and Lithium Mania 2.0. Pretty much everyone that was there, they're talking silver, gold, copper, and I think those metals will definitely have their day. But my belief is that we're in this very short window with all this push to EV vehicles, having this potential shortage of lithium and needing 600% more lithium over the next 5 to 10 years. This is going to be a pretty unique opportunity. And I've kind of, pushed all my chips into, various lithium companies with different market caps and in different stages of exploration. I still will eventually go back to those gold juniors and copper juniors. And I think a little bit later down the road, I think rare earths might be a pretty good opportunity. I think we're a little bit ways away from that. So just figured I'd mention that just so you guys kind of understand where my mindset is regarding the different metals. So let's skip forward again. Forward-looking statements. I don't represent Brunswick. Everything in here is either based on my one-on-one conversations with Bob and Killian at the booth. Some of them are my own opinions. So again, you guys need to do your own due diligence, assess your own risk, and make sure that it fits within your risk profile. Okay, let's skip ahead. So I actually had a couple questions regarding these particular slides. Bob kind of laughed and told Killian, hey, we should probably take these slides out. It's way too technical. So we actually talked this particular slide here in relationship to a question I had around what kind of data and maps and lake bottom sediment data they use to determine what is prospective, and actually to answer a question regarding mag surveys. I had someone in co.ca ask me, hey, can you ask Killian about when they plan on doing mag surveys? So that led to this question about, what's going on in this map and why these particular S-type granites and pegmatites. So the key thing to circle here is the source of LCT pegmatite. It only occurs in this 2 mica, I guess, S-type granite. So Bob, kind of circled this and kind of highlighted that. And then back to the question about, flying a mag survey. Basically, Bob said, pegmatites aren't responsive to mag surveys. Mag survey is really only good at finding fault zones. So for those that, are waiting for these news releases from other, lithium juniors, anticipating them flying mag surveys and, getting boots on the ground, mag surveys aren't going to help them identify spodumene, any kind of lithium bearing pegmatite. In my personal opinion, someone's flying a mag survey, they're just burning money. And that money should go into boots on the ground or using other data to figure out whether or not those pegmatites are lithium bearing. So just something for those folks to keep in mind is that, you know, this coming directly from the guys in the booth there. Okay, moving right along. So this map, that's actually led to my other question regarding how is Brunswick determining, you know, which claims they want to take and which, you know, projects are worth you know, drilling or doing some additional exploration. And the reason I had that question is in any of their presentations, they don't really show any lake bottom sediment data. They don't show any other kind of geology maps or anything of that nature. Nothing to the point of what you see in, you know, for instance, Azimuth had a news release on January 23rd, and they had these beautiful looking, pretty maps of all these colors and lake bottom sediment percentiles. And I'm like, I don't see these kind of maps at Brunswick or anywhere else. And, you know, Killian had mentioned, yeah, absolutely. They do use a lot of data to determine which claims are prospective and which they want to add to the portfolio. They use, you know, geology, they use geochem, they use satellite. The only reason they don't really show them in these presentations is if they did, you know, we'd have presentations that would essentially be 200 slides. So that's the reason why you don't see these things, excuse me, in this in any of these presentations. However, they do use a lot of information to make some of their decisions. So a couple things out of this slide that I thought were interesting as they were explaining what kind of information they use. Bob happened to take my pen and specifically circle these clusters of pegmatites and claims. And, you know, they mentioned, or he mentioned that, you know, all that data and all that stuff that they use, that's how they determined a bunch of these claims. But in particular, he kind of highlighted these set of clusters just east of Elron. So, you know, I kind of took that you know, there's potentially something there, and that could be somewhere that there's a little bit of extra focus in whatever summer field program they do. So just something to note there. Now, in regards to a question I threw at Killian, and we started talking about Anatacau, and I mentioned, hey, you know, you guys got a lot of stuff going on in James Bay. What's the next potential, you know, project that you could potentially drill? And Killian completely lit up. This dude was like on cloud nine when he mentioned Mirage, and he mentioned about this, you know, massive spodumene boulder that they had on that they found on that Mirage claim. And you know, he said this could be the next project that they drill. It could be a game changer. I'm not sure what work they've done or what work they plan on doing, but you know, he specifically called the Mirage out, and I think based on that Metals Investors presentation, yeah, he mentioned Mirage as being something of interest. So in my opinion on how James Bay is going to shake out in terms of their projects and kind of priority, Anatacau, and I'm going to talk about you know, what that drill program looks like and when that's going to start. I personally think Plex looks like there's a little bit of history with some, you know, prior cores that may have been drilled by, sorry about that, drilled by I believe it's Virginia Gold, if I'm not mistaken. You guys can correct me if I'm wrong. And I think Mirage or this little cluster that Bob circled could be those next set of you know, drill targets there. Probably a little bit more extra work needs to be done on this cluster here beside Elron and Mirage, but definitely some pretty interesting things there. All right, so let's talk Plex. I think there's been a lot of questions regarding Plex and you know, when are they going to drill? What's going on? What's the scoop? So here's the scoop and my take on Plex here. So I happened to bump into someone right after lunch. I was actually talking to someone at one of the other booths, and you know, this person mentioned that you know, Bob was here at the show and he got you know, this person got a pretty good hot take, and I was like, wow, that's a pretty good hot take there. So I figured I'd when the opportunity came, maybe I'd be able to slide that little hot take and just confirm. So fast forward to the 4:30 session. So John Sessions coming up with the five companies in that panel. And I happened to bump into Bob right at the doors right before that session. And Bob asked me, hey, can we go in? I'm like, looks like they're just finishing up the session there. So we were just hanging out the door, and I was like, okay, well, I had a pretty good sit down with Bob and Killian at the booth. Let me take this opportunity to, ask a couple of questions there on things that I was quite curious on. So, I first asked them about the name change. I've heard something on Twitter about them changing the name to Osisko Lithium, and yeah, they're gonna definitely do a name change. But I gave Bob my kind of take. I told him I didn't think that Osisko Lithium had a good ring to the name. He kind of agreed that they still need to figure out this name change. So I don't think they're 100% sold on Osisko Lithium. He did say that Osisko does need to be the name. So I think they're just kind of figuring out what else is going to be part of that name. And he mentioned that Osisko has a pretty strong brand presence in Canada, so it's definitely relevant to have that as part of this new rename. However, he said in Australia, Cisco doesn't really mean anything, so they're going to still work that out. I might throw Bob a couple of name ideas, and we'll see where that all goes. So as people started leaving that session, Bob literally opens up the door, and he's like literally standing there as people are falling out, and I'm asking him a couple of other questions. And I asked him, out of curiosity, do you have any plans to get out on the field and get out on the properties? And Bob lit up, and he's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna be getting out there. And you can kind of see the excitement and a kind of little kid in the candy store when it comes to the geo and the exploration. He's definitely hands-on and boots on the ground, and I think that's going to be a great advantage for those that are in Brunswick or just following the story. So seeing that Bob was in a good mood, I figured, hey, let me just throw this out there. And I told him, hey, I heard a little, birdie told me something, and I heard that you guys happen to be flying a helicopter and happen to find the core on the ground at Plex. So that's a little hot take for those that were curious. And Bob confirmed. He said, hey, we were flying a helicopter. We thought there was going to be about 10 feet of snow on the ground. And, surprise, surprise, there was literally no snow on the ground. So they happened to locate that core shack. Not sure what's in the core shack, but it seems like that core for the most part is there. So I think there's going to be some pretty exciting developments there at Plex. And I think, depending on what's in that core shack and what's available, how intact that is, that could be something that helps to fast track the Plex project. So someone on co.ca happened to find some pretty cool, I guess, some historic drill holes from that Plex project. I'm assuming this is from 2006. And if you see here, I'm going to just put my mouse cursor here. So we have some pegmatites literally at surface, 2 meters to 94 meters. We, scroll down, we have on another hole from 5 meters to 80 meters of pegmatite. Go down even further, we have 10 meters to 121. Hey, look, the story's there. We look a second, intercept here, 127 to 163. So we're talking 30 to 40 meters of pegmatite. A third one, 170 to 192. And then we scroll down here on another hole, 10 to 31, 40 to, 130 meters of pegmatite. Now, there's no saying there's actually, any lithium, cesium, or tantalum in here, or any lithium. But, hey, there's some core, never been tested for lithium. That's a pretty big deal to be able to get that core and then test it. And hey, this could be something again that could help fast track this Plex project. So some pretty interesting developments there, and hopefully that answers some of the questions regarding them locating that core shack. If the core is there, what does that mean for Plex? I think that's a little bit of a bonus there for this particular project. So that's that. Let's skip over to Anatacau. So Anatacau is actually going to be the first program that's going to see some drilling. So from what Killian told me, this will be drilling in about 3 weeks. I've been hearing some chatter on co.ca that someone was told by a geo that they're drilling today on Monday. I wasn't given any of that impression. I'm not sure if part of that helicopter that they were flying, that's part of getting some stuff to a camp to set up that drill pad. So maybe they're in the process of setting up the drill pad, and then the plan is that within 3 weeks they're actually going to be drilling. Don't know, but I heard this right from the horse's mouth from Killian that drilling's in 3 weeks. So I'll go with what information I've been able to glean from my conversation with both Bob and Killian. And in terms of the size of the drill program, they're planning on doing 2,000 meters on Anatacau. So just to, give you some background to those of like, why aren't they drilling 10,000 meters and why is it such a small program? With this, pegmatites and outcrop and mineralization being right at surface, there's absolutely no reason to have a large program. Killian mentioned that a 2,000 meter program is for starters, and they don't need to be poking, more than 50 to 100 meter holes in this project. Anything larger than that, is this going to be a waste? And if they do find lithium, spodumene, or anything that's LCT bearing, then they can drill, deeper holes and see how far that extends from there. So again, 3 weeks of drilling, 2,000 meters for starter. I happened to visit. I had heard something through some folks that I happened to bump into in one of the walkways there, and apparently Allkem is drilling their program here. I guess it's the Galaxy James Bay Lithium program, and rumor is, and I think Brunswick had mentioned in their presentation, and then obviously in the investors presentation, that Allkem is literally drilling at the border of Brunswick. And from what I understand in my conversation with Bob in the booth, seems like there's a theory that with them finding some success in those holes right up at that border, that the idea is that there's mineralization that actually goes into Brunswick's option. Now, I actually went to Allkem to confirm that these guys are drilling and they're finding some pretty exciting mineralization right at the border. Now, the person that I talked to, apparently it was not the geo. The geo wasn't there. He was familiar with the program, but maybe not to that level. And this individual happened to circle, the current deposit, circle this area as part of their focus, and then they kind of highlighted this area where they're putting in some holes. So they didn't know or mention that there's actually some holes here and what's kind of coming out of those holes, but could be that they're just kind of keeping things close to the vest and didn't want to alert anyone as to what they're doing there, if they're seeing anything down in this property here that both Asmit has and XTT has just north of that. So a little bit of information on what's happening on that particular property. So let's talk Hearst. And Hearst is pretty interesting. I have some notes on this particular map. I'm gonna maybe circle back. I got some info on North Shore. I got some good info on Nova Scotia, Saskatchewan, Manitoba. That'll, I think, will be pretty helpful to those that are listening on this podcast. So in regards to Hearst, so drilling is expected mid-April in Hearst. Couple things that's why the delay. I asked Killian specifically, a couple months ago, we were under the assumption, kind of told, hey, January expect drilling. Then they went to March, February, then March, now April. He said, mid-April. Really, the delay has been in permitting. Permitting definitely isn't as fast in Ontario as it is in other places like Quebec. And then the other thing you mentioned is, during that delay, they took the opportunity to kind of develop some stronger relationship with the First Nations. Killian said, really important to develop, good conversation relationship with this, First Nations. It would definitely help them as this thing develops in that area. So just a little note for those to take away on why things have taken a little bit longer in Hearst, but I think there's going to be a lot of exciting things coming out of Hearst. So in terms of size of drill program, the plan is 1,500 meters at Hearst. So again, more to come. Now, something of note, I actually asked Killian, I was on these DigiGeo data maps, and I happen to see the progress in a number of claims they've been grabbing after their initial Hearst claim grab, and they were adding in different areas. And I asked them, hey, do you guys plan to continue to add to Hearst? I've seen you guys adding to the east, to the south, and it seemed like at the moment they have the land that they want, but he happened to drop a little bit of a nugget. And he basically saying now folks are starting to come in and start grabbing claims and starting to stake. And he specifically said that Piedmont Lithium is staking all around them. So definitely word is getting out that there's a lot of good things happening at Hearst, and who knows, potentially there could be a discovery there. And Piedmont has figured, hey, we need to start staking ground specifically around Brunswick. So I thought that was a interesting little nugget there. So let's flip to a couple of slides here regarding Hearst. So for those curious about this there, so I had a couple of questions. I was just curious about this particular map and this little outline of spodumene. So I asked Killian, specifically what was the size of this particular outline here. So we know this is 25 meters in width, and this particular length is 85 meters for those that are curious. And it might not seem a lot, just a 25 by 85 meter section there. However, Killian said that this area here in behind this little outline, all these trees, he believes that extends beyond that. So they're gonna drill beyond kind of that little sight line there. So they believe it extends way beyond 85 meters. So this little map right here, this little decoy project, for those that are curious as to how they're going to drill this particular target. Here's that little outcrop here. They're not going to be drilling north to south. Killian pointed out, and I kind of outline on my map, they're going to be drilling in this west to east direction. So they're going to be drilling down in this area. They believe this extends this way, and there's not much going on down south of this little showing there. So don't expect anything here. I think they're going to be drilling straight in an easterly direction. The other thing that's of note, this can drill year round. So nice little added bonus there. And I took a little bit of a wrote something down here. I think the belief here is in this Hearst area that the trend is I believe 3 to 10 kilometers. Don't quote me on that, but for some reason I wrote that down specifically on this Hearst slide when asking about the Hearst project. So let's I'm going to scroll back to this map here because I think there's some pretty interesting things going on, not only in James Bay, but Nova Scotia, North Shore, and then actually Saskatchewan. There's some pretty good developments going on in Saskatchewan and Manitoba. So let's talk Nova Scotia. I had some specific questions in around the Nova Scotia area, just because I have a junior that's adjacent to their properties in that area. And what was mentioned regarding Nova Scotia. So Killian thinks that Nova Scotia is still pretty highly prospective. They found during a 2-month, exploration field program, they found 45 pegmatites in their property in Nova Scotia. So he believes it's, pretty prospective. He seemed pretty upbeat and optimistic. And the deal is they got way more things, bigger things going on in James Bay, Saskatchewan, the Hearst project, and this Nova Scotia program just falls just at the very bottom of the list. So not that the program has fully dropped off the radar. There's so much other things going on that they just don't have enough manpower to hit that Nova Scotia program more than what they've currently had. So in terms of the North Shore, this was mentioned a while back about this 18-kilometer trend, and I happen to see the maps there and all the different claims and people staking around there, and it's pretty massive. And I asked Killian what the heck's going on in North Shore. Why are you guys kind of downplaying the news release and whatnot? And he's, he lit up and he's like, hey, we have this massive anomaly in North Shore. We spent 2-3 days on the ground there, and we found more pegmatites on that North Shore program than we found in the Nova Scotia during a 2-month period. They just haven't found the lithium source. So they're still going to be doing some work on North Shore to find that source. I just think that they have 4 other projects that seem to be of a higher importance and higher likelihood of finding something there. So that's Nova Scotia and North Shore. They are going to spend some time in the summer on North Shore, so that hasn't been left for dead, but there's some more things going on. So one thing to note here, so I'm going to go into Saskatchewan. They picked up this project in the Hanson Lake area. The plan is they're going to walk Saskatchewan in May, and then they plan on actually drilling their Saskatchewan program in June, July. So that's project number 3 that will get it some drilling this summer. And to mention here, all of these programs that are getting drilled during the spring and summer program, they're finding mineralization right at surface. So that's kind of what's part of what's going into some of these decisions of drilling. So Saskatchewan, some good developments. And then he happened to mention that they happened to add some claims in Manitoba this past Wednesday. So they're going to be doing some work in Manitoba. And the plan is when they're drilling Saskatchewan, they're going to drill Manitoba as well. So that's take number 4 there, project number 4 that's going to get drilled. So we got James Bay, Hearst, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba. So I think they're not done getting claims in Saskatchewan or Manitoba. They're just holding a few things pretty close to the vest. The other thing as well is I actually circled or wrote a note here. They now have 600 pegmatites. So the belief prior to the Metals Investors Forum and prior to me sitting down, I think they had talked about having 500 pegmatites, and they're using kind of the math of, I guess basically the percentages you'd find, for every pegmatite you look at. I think it's 1 to 2% have some kind of lithium, cesium or tantalum. So again, don't quote me on that, but I think they're using the 2% percentage. So from a 600 target portfolio, if you kind of use that 2% rule, that's the potential for 10 to 12 discoveries in it. So again, that's more of a forward-looking statement. You have to use that information as you feel fit. I'm not saying that there is an actual discovery, just that that's kind of the math and the potential based on the number of pegmatites they have in their portfolio. So let's scoot on over to Saskatchewan. This is the other thing that Killian was really excited about, was the Saskatchewan, and specifically these white areas. So these white areas are actually pegmatites that are on these maps. So you can see these, I believe these blue outlines are claims that they own. And these purple ones here and these orange ones are claims that are owned by other folks, but I believe they have an option to that. So you can see these areas that are highlighted. They're gonna, definitely be hitting the ground and pounding Saskatchewan. It seems like the next province that's going to get a mass staking rush is Saskatchewan. Looks like there's a lot of geology there, and then just based on conversation with Killian, there seems like there's a lot going on here. So keep your eyes out on Saskatchewan. I think this could be the next place that gets staked, and you can see probably a lot of drilling or exploration going on this summer in Saskatchewan. All right, so just to finish some things off there, so Brunswick is my number one holding, my number one pick. I happen to, over the last, I'd say 3 or 4 months, use Kaiser's research web portal to pull out about 100 different lithium juniors, use a lot of information in combination with some of my own techniques to kind of model, the value of the company based on their projects and location, and see whether or not they have some bottom fishing value, or if they're overvalued. And from that list of 100, 105, I really only have 5 or 10 companies I think are in the current stage worth investing. And I do have some of those in my portfolio. So I use a lot of data, a lot of different sources, kind of my own over the years, modeling techniques to figure out what's a good company to sit in. So this is going to be a story that's probably going to take a little bit of time to develop, but there's definitely a good following and community. Definitely, this is something I'm going to keep my eyes on, and hopefully I can do that interview with Killian as a follow-up once the drills go into the ground. So I hope for those that have listened and those that are sharing the video that you found it very helpful. And, again, use the information as you see fit. I'm not making any recommendations. You guys are hopefully smart enough to know what makes sense in your portfolio and what your risk profile is. But Brunswick, again, they're doing what no one else is doing in the junior mining space, especially in Canada. Massive portfolio of pegmatites. They're ahead of the game. I have one junior in my portfolio that I feel is doing something similar, not to the level of what Brunswick is doing. I think they're being a little more deliberative or deliberate of what they're adding to their portfolio. So I kind of call, that junior, Brunswick 2.0. So stay tuned on that junior for those that are looking for, what else is of interest to me. And thanks again. And hopefully everyone found this useful. And if you guys have questions, feel free to hit me up in Twitter or co.ca, and I'll do my best to answer that. And, if I find any additional information or any additional thoughts from my visit this past weekend, I'll be sure to share it. So thanks again, and I will see you again soon.